ever wonder about the balance between fitness and feasting? I mean, food is amazing and we want to be healthy. And then here come the holidays and we want to be, with family, with friends, like the people. What do we do? Our guest today knows just what to do, and there are even some cookies involved. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Main Street Vegan Podcast. I am your host, Victoria Moran, and I am really happy to be here today because we don't often do food-focused shows on Main Street Vegan, even though food is such a big part of being vegan. And today we're going to be talking about food and so much more with a very special guest, Audrey Dunham. She is a mom of twins, a vegan recipe creator who shares her culinary expertise on her website, audreydunham.com, her YouTube channel, Audrey Dunham, and her books, Vegan Christmas, Cookies and Cocoa, and Vegan Thanksgiving, Dinner and Pies. She's the founder and creator of Peanuts Bake Shop Cookie Kits and Autumn Suns Baking Company, and she is married to the popular comedian and ventriloquist Jeff Dunham. Welcome, Audrey.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me.
Sorry, I have been coughing because even vegans aren't perfect. And that's another message. The beautiful life of the imperfect vegan. Thank you so very much for being our guest today. So let's start, as we often do, with your vegan story. I hear you have a rather fascinating one.
Well, it went back, let's see, so gosh, around the year 2000 or so. I just happened to have a roommate and my mom both go vegetarian at the same time. And I've always been a big food lover and a big lover of fitness. So those go back to when I was a tiny kid. I mean, I was the one baking the cookies when I was a tiny child, making sure the cookie jar was always full. But then also I'd be getting up early in the morning, turning on the Disney Channel and doing Mousercise before anybody else in the family was up. So I've always been a lover of both worlds, both fitness and food. And so, but around age 20, which was year 2000, so I had a roommate and my mom, like I said, that went vegetarian at the same time. And they both kind of hit me. I mean, two of the most influential, close people in my lives were sending me links from PETA and articles. And it just became very clear to me, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there was so much suffering and I don't want to be any part of this. So I immediately went vegetarian, especially like I remember that evening I was working as a waitress at P.F. Chang's and went on my break, went to a sandwich shop that was two doors down and got this ham and turkey sandwich. And I just took a bite and then I looked at it and I felt like it was like breathing. I remember that moment like that there was life still in this, and I put it down and that was it for quite a while. Then cut to 2007, I got into the fitness industry, started training for my first fitness competition as a vegetarian, and worked in a world, of course, it was very heavy on animal protein. And they were very convincing. My coach, I had a nutrition coach and a fitness coach, both telling me, look, there's no way that you're going to do well on stage. You can't build muscle without animal protein. So maybe just leave out the red meat and just have some chicken and turkey and fish. And then that way you can stand a chance at doing well on stage. And of course, now, I mean, times have changed quite a bit. And we know there's quite a few vegan bodybuilders out there that are doing very, very well. But back then there weren't very many examples and the internet wasn't as prominent sharing information about that. So I was convinced to go back to eating just, the chicken, turkey, fish, which was very hard in the beginning, but did that for a little bit. But ultimately, after doing 7 fitness competitions, I really had a hard time after each and every show keeping the weight off. And it was this tortured existence of feeling like, okay, I have these foods that I'm supposed to be eating, like this high animal protein and this whey protein, and then Greek yogurt's supposed to be good for you, and cottage cheese, and all of these other foods that the coach was saying that I should be eating all the time. But yet, if I went slightly over my plan that I had for fitness competitions, the quantities being a little higher, I immediately gained all the weight back, and I was miserable because it'd be about 20 pounds or so. And so finally, after about 7 fitness competitions, I'd had enough, started doing some research online, trying to figure out, okay, what do we actually need? What type of calories do we need? What foods are the healthiest in the world for you? And actually, which ones even have the lowest calories for the biggest bang for your buck, meaning like have the highest vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein, but have the lowest calories. And it always came down to plants. So I realized quickly, I'm like, I don't need to have any of this animal protein in order to meet all my requirements. And in fact, I think I'll be better off. And so I made the change pretty quickly, not overnight. I was one of those people that, like I said, a food lover. And so saying farewell to my feta cheese and Parmesan cheese on my salad took a little bit. I just love that little salty aspect. But then after a while, I started doing a deep dive into the dairy industry and realized, wow, there's a lot of suffering going on in the dairy industry. And boy, is it the most cruel out of all of the animal agriculture, especially after being a mom and you learn about what happens there, and how a cow does not just automatically produce milk around the clock year round, like most people assume. They actually need to be pregnant first before they can start producing milk. And then at that point, they do start once they're pregnant. And then after the baby is born, the baby is taken away so that we can have its milk. And so, I'm sure that you've shared this story many times, and most people who are vegan already know that, but the average person does not. And so it was pretty easy to give up cheese at that point. After that, I quickly made a change. I got certified in plant-based nutrition through eCornell. I was already certified in sports nutrition and fitness training, but at this point now, I was determined to see what would happen to my muscle and my ability to keep my weight down after becoming plant-based. And it was amazing. It was so much easier to keep my weight off. I felt fuller than ever. My plates were more colorful than ever. And I was inspired to then start making the vegan lifestyle as easy and approachable as possible for others so they could do the same. So there's my story in a not so small nutshell.
In a coconut shell. That is a great story. And I'm so grateful that you shared that you had the backward time. I mean, I had a couple too, and I think so many people did because this is very acultural. We're eating in a way and thinking in a way and seeing animals in a way that a very tiny percentage of the population is seeing. So the transition is something to celebrate and
right.
not
and
make light of.
Easy. Like even while I was pregnant with my twins 10 years ago, there were a couple of times I had cravings for chicken, and I would have a little bit here and there. But honestly, now at this point, I mean, that was 2015. I mean, I would, if I would ever have any more kids, which I'm not planning to, baby shop is closed. But if I were, there'd be no way. There's no chance I'm ever eating meat ever again. Like there's no chance. But back then, like the cravings were strong, and of course, I had a doctor saying get your protein, and so you have mixed messages. And of course, being an emotional pregnant woman, I just wanted to do what was best. But for the most part, very much plant-based pregnancy as well. So. And I think that's a really important note too. Anybody that wants to approach the plant-based lifestyle is to know that it's not always perfect, and that you do your best each and every day. And if that's how you need to start, then fantastic. Especially if you're approaching this for health reasons, you can make huge differences. I mean, both my husband and myself, after going plant-based vegan, both of our cholesterol dropped 50 points. I mean, so if anybody's trying to lower their cholesterol, I mean, start with that and skip the drugs, and you'll be astonished at what you can accomplish. And I've had some friends and family members who have done just that, just by going off of my advice. So anyway.
Well, this is all very interesting because one of the ways that some of us feel like, well, I'm not going to go off in terms of an animal standpoint, but I really do want to go off and just have some vegan cookies.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Well, so like I said, the main mission at this point in my life is to make the vegan lifestyle as approachable as possible and easy, because it can feel really hard and scary at first. So I remember years and years ago when I first decided that I wanted to go this route, thinking, okay, I'm going to start with Meatless Monday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world are we going to eat? I can only imagine so many other people feel the same way. They're like, well, you're supposed to have your main entree, and that's always a meat dish. So then what do you have there if you don't have that? And so it's sort of just kind of rethinking the way you create your plate. And so you can start by taking all the things that you'd normally have as a side dish and have just more of those to start. And then start, of course, at this point, there's so much available. I mean, recipes, there's pre-made meals in the frozen section. Like there's just endless resources to help now at this point to make it an easier transition. But when it comes to cookies, to answer your question, I launched my very first baking mix line back when I was pregnant with my twins, which was an interesting choice. Can't say I recommend launching a business while you're pregnant with your first child or children. It's a lot because you're already preparing to expand your family and launch into motherhood. But that was the way it turned out. And Peanuts Bake Shop was the first cookie mix line that I had, named for my husband, Jeff Dunham's very famous character, Peanut. He's a purple fun character that he has on stage with him. Like you said, he's a ventriloquist. And I felt, you know what? I would love to jump into the family business, help expand, get Jeff's characters into the grocery stores, sort of like how you see Sesame Street on some brands. And I just felt like it would be so great if I could help in that regard. And at the same time, of course, being a baker and loving that whole world of creating yummy, sweet treats, I feel like that's where people have the toughest time. Like they feel like, okay, there's nothing good out there that's vegan. So if I'm going to stray, then that's when I will. It's when it comes to dessert. So why not help solve that problem? And then I also, at the same time, I was seeing a lot of people during that time grabbing pre-made cookies, things that were already baked. And of course, as we know, most of the time, those cookies don't have the best ingredient panel, and they have a lot of palm oil, things like that. Not, a lot of oils that are not so great for the heart and the arteries. And so I was on a mission to help get people back into the kitchen, make cookies from scratch, like I did growing up. It was such a big part of my childhood. And there's just something about creating dough, getting your fingers in it, having that smell of fresh baked cookies in your kitchen. And then, of course, that first bite of a freshly baked cookie, there's just nothing quite like it. So if I could create a cookie mix that makes that super easy, where all you need to add is 2 small ingredients, which is just a little bit of oil, and you can even use olive oil if you like, and water, and that's it, then how great would that be? And so that was my mission. And at the time, I also was meeting a lot of people that had gluten allergies. So it's like, why not make them gluten-free also? So that was, of course, a bigger challenge than making them vegan. Anybody who's done gluten-free baking and they're creating something from scratch and creating a recipe from scratch, you realize, wow, gluten-free is a lot harder than vegan. So especially if you're celiac and you absolutely need it, I feel like that world is much, much tougher. And I have a lot of love that go out to all the people out there living with celiac. But I wanted to see if I could help in some way by creating delicious, decadent cookie mixes to make their lives a little sweeter. So launched Peanuts Bake Shop. And that's sort of had a little bit of a cult following after a while. A lot of Jeff's fans love them. They were snatching them up at the live shows. He sold them at the merchandise stands. And then the biggest question we had was, when are you going to get these into grocery stores? Because, we'd love to be able to just run down the street and pick them up. So during COVID 2021, I started researching, okay, how can I get these cookie mixes into retail, and started partnering up with a branding company and a consultant. And they both kind of leveled with me. They're like, look, you have this allergen-free baking mix line with the name Peanuts in the title. And they said, this is a problem. Anybody who has a peanut allergy is not going to go anywhere near your mixes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's a picture of peanut right there. People are going to figure it out, just like Pillsbury. That's the Pillsbury Doughboy. But no, they were right. After I thought about it, as heartbreaking as it was, I realized it was time to rebrand, come up with a new brand. And that's how we came up with Autumn Suns Baking Company, which is named for my twin boys that were born in the autumn. So there are Autumn Suns. And on the packaging, you can see little cartoon drawings of the two of them, one little brunette, one little redhead, just like they are. And on each flavor, they're doing some other fun, cute activity, dancing around the cookie trees on the package. And so they absolutely love being the mascots for the company. And funny enough, my team at the time, my consultant was based in Canada. So we built a team in Canada, ended up launching first there. Wasn't my original plan, but it just turned out that way. And then, so now we're working on the US. But in the meantime, they're available on our website, autumnsonsbaking.com, as well as on Amazon in both countries.
Very nice. Oh my goodness. I'm just making a note of that because I want to tell everybody about it. autumnsonsbaking.com, baking.com. Okay, cool. So let's talk about you mentioned Peanut as one of your husband's characters, but my favorite of his characters is Bubba. And I just want to know if Bubba, who's a Southern guy, he's kind of into NASCAR and such, if he was coming for dinner, what would you feed him?
Okay, if Bubba J was coming for dinner, we definitely would need some chilled beer because anybody who's familiar with Bubba J knows he loves his beer. So perhaps we would do that. We don't have a lot of alcohol in our house, but special occasions, I suppose we have it. Let's see. What would he like? I think he'd probably like some sort of vegan version of chicken and waffles. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And thankfully, we live in a time where you can get some really amazing frozen fried chicken and chicken strips out there. And then I would just make some yummy waffles from scratch. I have a recipe on my website that is our go-to, and they're quite fantastic. And then my little special touch that I like is to create a cinnamon syrup, and you warm that up, and all it is adding a little bit of cinnamon to your syrup, and then you put it in a saucepan on the stove, and then you drizzle that over. It's magical.
Well, I'm sure he would like that. And if I came with him, I would like some of your mashed potatoes. Those on your website are really spectacular. You, for so long as a vegan, I didn't even mash potatoes because I didn't think it could possibly replicate what I grew up on, but yours do. So
Oh, wonderful.
kudos on the mashed potatoes. So, what's it like? You're in Los Angeles now and you're in that kind of showbiz world. You're raising children, you're vegan. Tell us about your life.
It is nonstop action, I have to say. I'm running a very busy household. My husband is travels every other week. Yeah, about anywhere from 8 to 10 days per month. He's gone every other week, so it's a careful balance of when as soon as the kids are out the door for school, they are dropped off. Then I come back and I'm in business mode. I have that hat on. But at the same time, any working mom or working parent knows that domestic side is always there and things come up. So it can be really tricky. And I think that honestly, people don't talk about it quite enough, where it can be darn right hard. And I mean, of course, like if you can build a team, if you have one part-time assistant or a mom or anybody that can come around and help, it makes a world of difference. And so that's something I'm thankful for. My parents live right around the corner. My mom is.
Oh, nice.
She is there and ready with whatever we got going on. She's an angel, and I am so thankful for her. Same with my dad. They help out all the time. But so running the cookie mix business, there's just so many things that come up every single day that you can't even imagine. And it's this, I have a few people on my team, but I also, I have the US side and the Canadian side. And then with Jeff, of course, he has a huge business and a lot of moving parts. So of course, what's funny is like in the beginning when we met, I was his trainer on the road. This years ago. And so I traveled with him for 7 years. And I mean, we immediately fell in love. Like that was like right from the start. There was no question there. But so we had a great time before the kids were born, just running around the globe. And so I was in charge of basically his food. And of course, but then if you're a couple and it's not always perfect, but when on show days, it was, I managed his meals and helped him backstage get in his workouts. He had a set of weights that we traveled with and an elliptical, go for walks. And So that was my job back then, and it honestly has never gone away. So even now, I take care of him. I put a little shot glass with vitamins in it every morning,
Ah,
and I mean, manage his meals, especially if he has a big project coming up where he's wants to get in shape for a taping. Then it's a big job for me to make sure that he accomplishes his goal and help him any way that I can. So yeah, a lot going on. I mean, it's a really big, incredible, nutty life. And my job also, on top of all that, is to be present. And especially as soon as those kids get home, I try to put away the phone and be there so that they don't have a memory of a parent who's glued to their device. Instead, somebody who's actually there and making their childhood really amazing. So
oh,
there you
that's
go.
wonderful. Oh,
Thanks.
because you don't get it back. And the busyness thing, I think that 20 years ago, when a lot of people were going into an office every day and the corporate climb was a big thing in a lot of people's lives, there was talk about work-life balance. But after the pandemic, when we're still working but doing it from home, I think the conversation got a little bit quieter, and it really needs to be louder because when you're working from home, you want to be sure it's still home.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And it's so tricky because you do have constant distractions, like you'll have a repairman show up for something, or like, and of course, like you're maintaining a house or a home, or even if it's an apartment, like things come up all the time. People come knocking at the door, and then you can easily get distracted for 30 minutes to an hour or more. And but I think a lot of people, they feel like if they are having a hard time with it, then it's their fault and that it's something wrong with them. But really, we're all kind of in it and dealing with it. And I think getting together and talking about it and offering up solutions and tips and advice is really helpful.
Yeah. It's almost like we're due for a remake of that 9 to 5 song, maybe the whole movie, except it's 24/7 and the people are working from home, not
Yeah.
with a boss breathing down their neck, but often if you work for yourself, you work for a tyrant.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's a new way of looking at things. And then you bring the kids in. So let's talk about
Yep.
kids. Let's talk about raising
Mhm.
kids vegan, because it's a little different. Even the food is different than if
Right.
you're talking about single adults out there living their own lives.
Right. So of course, like a lot of kids are picky. So you have that aspect right from the beginning. Thankfully, I mean, I'm thankful that right from the start, if I have any advice to give somebody who's starting from when with babies, the best thing you can do is to introduce them to green colored foods. Doesn't matter which one. But if you think that at some point they're going to eventually learn to like vegetables when they're teenagers or adults, but they aren't right now, that it just doesn't usually happen unless they have some help. And so in our house, it was, broccoli and then a lot of avocado. And if avocado isn't a big favorite of your kids from the beginning, one thing you can do is mash it with some banana so it's sweet. So it turns into like a baby food. And then you can sort of kind of get rid of the banana and just have avocado by itself, a little salt. And anybody who's had that knows it's magical. And and kids usually fall in love with it. But then what it does is then it really helps to it helps kids to love green foods of all types going forward. But if they don't have that from the beginning, then it can be scary and something that they just feel like isn't going to taste good. But for those who have older kids and would like them to learn to like vegetables a little bit more, I think there's a couple ways that you can do that, which is by first and foremost, having them help you shop for vegetables in the grocery store or pick out recipes online. That's one way to do it so they're involved. And then have them help you cook it in the kitchen. And then from there, it's all about toppings and sauces that you can accompany the vegetables with just to help them get it in their mouth. So whether it's ketchup or a balsamic glaze or whatever it is that you need to do, even if it's just a little bit of salt, roasting, sometimes that is more palatable than steamed. Just getting them to eat it any way you can in the beginning. And then at some point, they'll be like, hey, you know what? I'm in a restaurant. I'm with some friends. There's some roasted asparagus. I know that I like roasted asparagus with balsamic glaze on it, but this one doesn't. But hey, let's see if I like it because everybody else is eating it. And then there you go. So, but I think that's an important part. Otherwise, the other thing that comes up quite a bit with our kids, raising them vegan, is when they go to birthday parties. And I think that any parent raising a vegan child, they can relate that this might be the hardest part. So, and then Halloween with trick-or-treating. And so what I do with the birthday parties is I give them the choice. Like, you are more than welcome to have that piece of cake, that donut, that cookie. That is completely up to you. That is your choice. And meanwhile, they've heard all the conversations, the reasons why that we choose a vegan lifestyle in our household. And they know that. And a lot of times they'll take a bite and they can taste the butter or the eggs, and then they'll just choose not to eat it. Sometimes they'll finish the piece, like especially if it's made with like more palm oil rather than butter, like, you know, a lot of the frostings from the grocery store. And, you know, some of them might be accidentally vegan anyway, with those, you know, with some of the ingredients. But I think it's really important, rather than forcing them to be a certain way, if they really would rather not, if they want to have a piece of that cake and be like all the other kids. Thankfully, I mean, in my case, my boys have zero interest in cheese or meat or eggs or anything that's savory that it is animal based. But when it comes to that dessert, that's when they have the choice, and they can do whatever they like. Halloween, when it comes to Halloween candy, what I do is I buy a whole bunch of vegan candies. And so we do our trick-or-treating. And then the next day, and of course they can have the candy if they want. It's their choice, like I said, but I do kind of put my foot down on the ones that are like taffy, things that I know are going to ruin their teeth. So, because we've had a lot of dentist appointments, and I know it can be prevented by getting rid of the taffy. But anyway, another conversation for another day. So what I do is I buy a bunch of candy and I spread it out on the table, and I try and trade them. And you have to make sure it's really delicious looking, amazing candy. And thankfully out there in the world, there's some great stuff. Like, you know, you have Reese's now making plant-based candy bars and peanut butter cups, and a lot of companies that are coming up with some really gorgeous looking candy bar packaging and whatnot. And so I do my best to trade, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And the rest is up to them once again. But then after a while, like, the candy will kind of go away. Like, be like, all right, they've forgotten about it. It's been sitting in the pantry for a while. I'm just going to donate it and let it go. And that's the way we handle Halloween in our house. But, you know, the most important thing is that as they get older and they grow up, they know that they weren't forced to do anything, but they have that knowledge, and we'll keep having the conversations so that it's refreshed and current as to why. When, as long as they have that why, then they usually end up going the vegan route anyway.
You bring back so many memories for me, because when I was raising my daughter in the 80s and 90s, but I don't know if she was still trick-or-treating in the 90s. But anyway, yeah, the Halloween trade. I guess that's one of those kind of vegan mom secrets that we all kind of figure out and don't know everybody else is doing it.
See, I thought I was so clever, and here everybody else is doing it. But yeah, I mean, it's like survival, right? We're just doing the best we can, and knowing that we don't have to be perfect, but we're trying our hardest, and that's all we can do, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So as you are out there in LA with a lot of people who are interested in health, do you come across pushback on vegan because people are doing carnivore and this and that? How do you deal with that?
Oh, for sure. You know, I have a history of little gut health issues that kind of come and go. And I've had it even back before I went vegan. So even it started in my fitness competition training years. And I actually think that it's somehow related to adrenal depletion and whatnot. And so when things kind of get stirred up, I'll go see an integrative doctor. And I know every integrative doctor is really big on like the paleo lifestyle. So I walk in knowing, here we go, I'm going to have another conversation. And because I mean, ultimately they're very knowledgeable when it comes to herbs and whatnot, things that can be helpful. And it's kind of nice just to have the current information, see what's new out there. So I'll go and see an integrative doctor if things start feeling a little off. And I'll just beg them. I'll be like, please give me one good reason why I need to eat meat to heal right now. And they'll be, oh, well, there's, I mean, a lot. I'm like, give me one. And I just try and just not be judgmental, just be very grounded and approachable in the way I talk. I might sound a little snarkier now, but in the moment, I just try and be very relaxed. And because I think a lot of people get turned off by the judgy vegan, right? Like nobody likes that. So And I haven't heard anything yet, especially with my background as a certified in plant-based nutrition through the course I did through eCornell. There's just so much knowledge there that I acquired, and there's yet to be an argument that that has convinced me that it's required in order to be a healthy person. So, I mean, okay, if you think there's more bioavailable protein or amino acids with animal meat, okay, maybe, but I don't think that's going to cure like what's going on in my gut. And all these herbs that you're recommending that I use, they don't have anything to do with animals. So anyway, it's I think that if anybody was going to do something that was second best to the plant-based lifestyle, I think the paleo is second best, simply because you're omitting the dairy and processed foods. So that does a world of difference in your health. Of course, I'm not a meat eater, so I would never go paleo, but I think it's, the high vegetables, there's some value there. But anyway, so that's what I deal with. I think the most, to answer your question, is seeing the integrative doctors. And then of course, the keto trend that was so big for a while there, which was, oh my gosh, it's just, I think, just if you want to see your cholesterol shoot through the roof in your heart, really get a nice beating, then yeah, go on keto. But I mean, ultimately, if you're looking at what's natural for the body, carbohydrates are the easiest for the body to assimilate and turn into energy. We don't want to stress out our bodies and overload it with protein that is harder to convert to energy. And people hear that, oh yeah, but protein, you burn more calories breaking down protein. I'm like, well, yeah, because your body's having to work really hard, and that's not necessarily a good thing. We want things that are easy for our bodies to turn into energy, with our whole grains and our vegetables and our fruit and whatnot, our plant-based ingredients. So, I mean, I have to say, a lot of plant-based, a lot of people are pretty plant-forward for the most part in Los Angeles, which is really nice. And so you do see a lot of nice options on menus and restaurants. Grocery stores carry a lot of products, and anybody who's been in LA might be familiar with the grocery store called Erewhon. They have a nice variety of foods to choose from, and of course, Whole Foods, Sprouts. So there's a lot of benefits to living in Los Angeles for sure.
Oh, plus you get all that great weather. My favorite thing about Los Angeles is, at least in certain areas, you can walk down the streets and smell flowers. And I live in New York. I love New York, but smelling flowers, you pretty much have to walk into a building and see what the doorman's got,
I
on
love
the
New York
table
too, though.
there.
I mean, New York is a fantastic city, and I wish I was one of those 20-year-olds that took off and decided to live there for a little while just to experience it. But it wasn't in the cards for me, and who knows, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I did that. But I do see a lot of college-age kids that decide to do that. I'm like, good for you, man. What a great city.
Well, I did it at 50, because
Okay.
my daughter was 17, and she had done, as she said, all the theater I can do in Kansas City. I need to go to New York. And I'd been writing books. I wanted to be where the books were published. So here we came.
I love it. And where were you
The
before that?
Kansas
You
City,
said Kansas
Missouri.
City.
Yeah,
There you
that
go.
was my hometown. I'd left a lot. I'd gone to London after high school, and I was in
Oh,
Chicago for 10 years, but Kansas City kept drawing me back. But now been in New York since 2000, so I think
oh,
it's
wow.
home. I do want to ask you on the integrative doctor question again,
Mhm.
because it's interesting that this is what you've experienced recently, and I've experienced for a long time, that
Mhm.
medical doctors, even though I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals, medical doctors seem to know that a plant-based diet is a really good choice,
Isn't that the truth? You're
isn't
so
it?
right. Yeah.
But the functional medicine doctors, which a lot of people confuse with a lifestyle medicine doctor, they think
Yeah.
they're going to get a plant-based doctor, and they go in and their glandular supplements and all these meat recommendations.
Yeah.
So just tell us your personal philosophy of health, and your daily lifestyle practices.
Sure. So one thing that I've been guilty of in the past is eating the same foods over and over again every day. And I think that a lot of people will tend to do that because we're busy. We know what we like. We find things that work for us that make us feel good, and we figure out our portion sizes. that can be a dangerous thing, especially if you have sort of a sensitive stomach like I do. And what can happen is you can develop food sensitivities. And so your body, after a while, it's just getting too much of one thing. And after a while, for whatever reason, it decides that's enough. And so I talk to people all the time who don't know anything about this. They'll be like, look, in the evening, my stomach starts to get a little bit rumbly. And I'm noticing it's starting to get a little bit worse each night. I get gassy and I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm eating. And then of course, like they want to like blame the very last thing that they ate, but usually it can go back to breakfast or lunch. It could be much earlier in the day. And so what can happen is you develop a food sensitivity to something if you've been eating it too long for too often. I mean, I'm talking like 6 months or longer. And so I've experienced this quite a bit. And so all you need to do is sort of figure out which food it is and just take a break for a while. And then usually if you take like a few months off, you can go back to it. But ultimately, if you want to avoid this altogether, just don't eat the same foods every day. Sorry, I have doggies barking. I don't know if you can hear that. And so now I'm on a mission knowing that I'm susceptible to that. I'm on a mission to now add as much variety to my diet as possible, even if I'm super busy. So I pull out my old recipes, I visit my own website and start making things so that it's a nice variety. So just in general for health overall, even if you don't have an issue with food sensitivities, having nice variety is key because each and every food has different vitamins and minerals to offer. And that's just basically how it was meant to be anyway, right? So having that nice, and then I think that you see things online like aim to have 21 different foods a day or a week or what. And so you see things about that online and that recommend that. And that's just a great way to go. And then that way you're meeting your amino acid needs, your nutrition needs. There's some things that are nice to supplement with, such as, vitamin D can be a good one depending on how much sunlight you get. B12, as we all know, which basically comes from the fact that we wash our produce really thoroughly now, right? And so now we're not getting that natural source of B12 we used to get from the soil. Let's see, I do a handful of other supplements. I do algae-based omega-3 just to help lower inflammation, help with brain health. And so I even have my kids supplementing with, there's this liquid one that's made from, what's the company, Barleans or something like that. It's a banana strawberry flavored. Then you can get it in Whole Foods, all sorts of stores, and it's a plant-based omega-3. You can give your kid in a little tablespoon each night, and it's fantastic because you know that they're getting their omega-3s. So I like to do that. Let's see, and then so then each day I just have a goal. I'll be like, okay, I know I want to have my oatmeal, but I'm gonna force myself to have something different each day, or at least have like a 3-day rotation when it comes to breakfast. And that works out really nicely for me. And it helps me prevent food sensitivities, knowing that I'm susceptible to that.
Oh, that's a really good idea. I think especially with breakfast, it's so easy to just get addicted. Mine is this Ayurvedic chocolate shake that I
Ooh.
adapted from the Indian chocolate shake in Talia Lutzker's the Ayurvedic vegan kitchen. And what I love about doing a shake is that you can put so much good stuff in it. So, the amla's in there and the ground flax and all these wonderful extras. But yeah,
Definitely.
sometimes it's good to do something a little different. So what else in terms of you're a trainer? How do you exercise? What do you do for stress?
Oh, sure. So actually, exercise at this point is my number one way to tackle stress. And I think if anybody were to do anything for themselves, is to, even when I lived in an apartment when I was single, I did this, have one piece of cardio equipment in your house. And at the time when I had an apartment, it was one that was just body powered. So you don't even plug it in. It's just like sort of like this elliptical that you're moving your feet and that's how it moves. And you're doing your, like, and it would fold it up and I could put it away. And what it does, clears your head, and you can set it up right in front of a TV, put on your favorite show or your movie. You're getting your blood moving, but you're also sort of like clearing your head. You're forgetting about anything else going on in life, taking this time for you to move your blood, get things going. And then also, even if you're just listening to a podcast or listening to nothing, it's a great time to clear your head. I also love taking my dog for a walk. So that's another great time to clear my head, get creative. It's amazing how many ideas you can come up with. And I feel the earliest you can do that in the day, the better. So you try and get that in first thing, and you're less likely to cut it short, less likely to um, skip it altogether. Because if you keep putting it off until later in the day, especially if you're working from home, it's less likely to happen and likely to be shorter. So I feel like get it done in the morning, just get it done. And so what I do is the first clothing I put on in the morning is workout clothes. I don't even put on any regular clothes, workout clothes after I get up. So even if it takes me 2 hours to get in the gym or to get going or to take my dog out for a walk, then at least I don't have to deal with that hurdle that in your mind of like, oh, I don't want to go change my clothes, because that can stop somebody, right, from actually getting in their workout, because it feels like, oh, I don't want to do that right now. And you have no excuse if they're already on your body, right?
That is greatly wise. So, audience, just for a minute, let's just digress to a little bit of what's going on at Main Street Vegan, and we'll come back and ask our lovely guests some more interesting questions. So, Main Street Vegan Academy is having cohort 37 starting in late September 2025. And because the world out there is kind of weird and less vegan friendly than it was a few years back, and because the stakes are very high for animals and arteries and our beautiful planet, we're doing something at Main Street Vegan Academy that we have never done since our founding in 2012, and that is offer a discount that is so great, it really is an offer you can't refuse. So, because as a listener to this podcast, you're my friend and you're a friend of the animals, the code is FRIEND, all capital letters. So if you go to mainstreetvegan.com, read about the program, and be in touch if you have extra questions. And then if you do apply, just put friend in the discount code box, and you can come to Main Street Vegan Academy for half off. And what will happen then? Well, first, you will have a life-changing experience. We are not one of these online courses with modules and things. We are live, interactive on Zoom. Yes, if you can't come every day, there are recordings, but this is really designed to be a life experience and a life-changing experience. And when you're done, you will have the highly respected vegan lifestyle coach and educator. See, when you think like a writer, you talk like a writer. Vegan coach and educator certification. So that's mainstreetvegan.com. The code is FRIEND, and hope to see you in September. So, Audrey, your husband sometimes talks about having a vegan wife in his act. What's it like for you?
Well, I knew when we got together that that was just part of the package. Jeff is known for talking about his family quite a bit on stage. He always does a little bit of stand up before he brings out the characters on stage, and that's usually stories about family and what's going on. And so of course I knew that going in, like, okay, it's just part of the package. You got to be okay with that, and of course I am. You got to have a sense of humor about things, and I think that if people can have more conversations and just and so I mean the characters, like they say the things that Jeff isn't, quote, allowed to say, right? So they say the things that are maybe people are thinking but wouldn't necessarily ever say out loud. And so they make fun of Jeff, or they say what are you eating? Like, how do you eat? Are you starving? Like all the usual typical stereotypical type jokes. And then he's actually able to come back and defend if he likes, or talk about how delicious the food is. And so it's fun. You just have to kind of roll with it and appreciate the whole package of being married to a comedian.
I have often thought that in recent times, and on the one hand, it's wonderful that we have increased our degree of respect for all people, but on the other hand, being a comedian must be really, really difficult, because that line between being funny and offending someone has just gotten very, very thin.
Right. No, I know, and it's a careful line that he has to walk. And and make sure that he never cross. And I mean, it's interesting though when you have characters because they can say the politically incorrect thing, and then Jeff, of course, it's funny because it's shocking, right? And like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But then Jeff get angry at the character because they're not allowed to say things like that. And so he has a nice little situation where he can have the conversations that most people are having at home behind closed doors anyway. And then just have them out there. And that's part of the comedy, I think, is that they're kind of relieved, like, oh my goodness, okay, it's still okay to laugh at these things, but Jeff is saying to his characters, this isn't right, this is inappropriate, but yet we're still talking about him because he has this sort of license given his special situation. But of course, even now, like we'll look back at stuff that he did a decade or two ago and be like, "Woo, we can't say that now." So things have, of course, have changed, and there's lines you can still cross even with characters. And so, of course, he's very respectful and always been a great judge as to what he can and can't say on stage. That's just part of his longevity, I think, and how he's maintained this incredible career in doing, arenas for, gosh, what's it been now, like 17 years. He's been doing only arenas and some occasional theaters, and otherwise it's been worldwide ongoing success, and it's just a phenomenon. So,
which is not surprising because he is incredibly funny. I mean, I'm just assuming that everybody listening knows Jeff Dunham, but if you don't, I mean, laugh out loud fun and talk about stress management. Laughter is so great for that too.
I agree. And we hear a lot of wonderful stories too. A lot of fans that come out saying, you helped me get through cancer. I mean, when I was in the hospital bed, I don't know what I would have done without you. You saved my life. And you hear these incredible stories. And so it's really, it's been an incredible ride, and being by his side, witnessing it all throughout the years. We've been together a really long time now. And so I feel really lucky. It's a wonderful life, and being married to somebody that makes so many people laugh all over the world is fantastic, and such a wonderful place for me to be in. And I'm thankful for it. I really am, every single day.
Well, comedy makes people laugh, but cookies make people smile. So you're both doing your part. So just as we come to a close, Audrey, I do want to talk about your holiday books, because that's always a big deal for people. And so often that's when the family stuff gets kind of prickly.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other ones.
Sure. So my two cookbooks, Vegan Christmas Cookies and Cocoa, that was my first COVID project in 2020. And so my kids were only out from March to July, and then their school said, hey, they're little kids, we're going to open up a summer school. So if your kids want to come, we're like, yes. So they were only home for a short time. But even during that time, like I said, I have my parents that live down the street. We had our sort of like our little group that we still, I think everybody had that, right? Like your little safe group, like, okay, we're still going to get together with you because we're family and we need to be around somebody. And so my parents were in that group for us. And so we had this sort of schedule where my mom would be with the kids, Jeff would be with the kids, I'd be with the kids for a certain amount of hours. And I was just determined. I'm like, I got to take a focus on something fun. So how about this cookbook I've always wanted to write? So anytime it was my turn to get a little work done, I was in the kitchen creating cookie recipes, because ultimately, I think, like you said, the holidays are the hardest because everybody wants that nostalgia. They have these recipes they grew up with, the cookie recipes. And then in 2021, I had my second COVID project, which was Thanksgiving dinner and pies, vegan Thanksgiving dinner and pies that I wrote. And I self-published both of them, hired a photographer, have colorful pictures for almost every single recipe in the book because I felt that was important. And it's just, it was two of the best things I feel like I've ever accomplished and hopefully given to the world, because I know that that's something that I faced. I mean, I had a couple of cookie recipes where I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, went vegan. And I'm thinking, how can I live the rest of my life without those cookies my mom made? And then of course, like then your brain goes, maybe I can veganize them. Let's see if I can do that. And then kind of went from there. And so my goal is to, of course you want to make everybody happy at the holidays, not just the vegans. You want the omnivores to love your cooking as well. And so what we do is we make sure all of our recipes are delicious and decadent and yummy. As long as they taste good, most people don't care if they're vegan or not. And so like they on Thanksgiving, of course, I think we're divided about 50-50 as far as like the vegans versus omnivores in our house. And so we have the turkey, but then all the sides are vegan, which is very easy to do. A lot of them, I mean, are very, very simple and easy, like stuffing. I mean, come on, you swap out the chicken stock for the vegetable stock, mashed potatoes, it's just there's some incredibly great dairy alternatives out there now. You can make amazing mashed potatoes, incredible vegetable dishes. And then the pies, I think, can be the trickiest. So those did take a lot of work for me to master, because I wanted that pumpkin pie to be just like the pumpkin pie I grew up with. So, I mean, we had a lot of pumpkin pie in our house for a while there while I was making that recipe. There's, of course, everybody, most people who are vegan, plant-based want to be healthy too. But when it comes to Thanksgiving, it just has to taste good, and you want it to be decadent, and it's naturally going to be a little healthier because it doesn't have the cholesterol, right? And and the animal sources for the saturated fat. So it's always going to be a little bit healthier no matter what, but ultimately it just had to taste good. And so that's what it came down to, is like the family was fine with it. They're like, okay, great. Okay, the rolls are vegan now. That's fine. As long as they taste good. So came out with those 2 books, and oh gosh, I hope that I I hope I come out with some more cookbooks. I think I will. If things are super busy right now, but those were 2 of the funnest, greatest times of my life, creating those 2 cookbooks.
They really are. I find that writing a book is very similar kind of psychically to expecting a child. It's just all this hope and all this promise. Do you make that connection?
Oh, and it is your baby, right?
Yes.
Like ultimately, and then once it's out there in the world, it has a similar feeling. That's really interesting. Like, of course, without all the labor pains, but there's different pains you go through, right?
Yeah.
Your printer is behind schedule, or there's shipping delays because it's the holidays, whatever it is that you're going through, or but yeah, it's interesting how you're right. There's a lot of similarities there, because there's so much love and heart and soul. I remember Jeff wrote an autobiography back in, I think, 2010, which is amazing. If anybody wants to hear an incredible story, my gosh, this guy, he's been doing ventriloquism since he was 8 years old. So if you want to hear like the wackiest, crazy, amazing story of somebody who has pushed through and never had a plan B, and all of the ups and downs that he faced in the industry, like his Johnny Carson days. And he has an audio version if you want to listen to him tell the story himself. I highly recommend it. But
what's it called?
So Jeff Dunham, All by Myself.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too. And by the way, we will put book titles and social media and other things for Audrey and for Jeff in the show notes at mainstreetvegan.com. So Audrey, may I ask you a favor?
Of course.
Could you deliver a message to Bubba J?
Oh, absolutely.
That if he kind of feels like maybe he doesn't have a lot of vegan friends and people that enjoy the things that he enjoys, Dr. Neil Barnard of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is a great NASCAR fan.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know Neil. Yeah, I've actually toured the PCRM facility and been to a few of their functions. Love Neil, and that's great to know. I'll pass that along.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your mashed potatoes.
Oh, sure.
And I just so appreciate all you're doing in the world and having this opportunity to share that with my listeners.
Thank you, Victoria. This has been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
And everybody, thank you for being here. And now let's go out and make Main Street vegan.